I'm JD. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and please hit like. And what we're going to do today is talk about jewel settings. Alright, what is a jewel setting and why do I care? I'll tell you why I care. I care because when I'm maintaining a watch and I check all of the jewels and I realize I've got a broken jewel, I may have to actually replace the jewel and the setting. In the case I've just come up with, I have a very small ladies watch, likely a size 0 watch, and you know how much I love maintaining ladies watches, and it has an upper balanced jewel setting, and in that is an upper balanced jewel, and that jewel was cracked. The cap jewel was fine, but the jewel within the setting was cracked. So what am I going to do about that? Well, as my first option, as you can see on the right hand side, I've got a whack load of jewel settings that I can test. I can see which ones might fit, and I can do some jewel setting hunting. Now if I find the right hole size but my jewel setting is wrong, I might be able to modify that jewel setting on a lathe to make it fit. If the hole size is not right, obviously it's not going to work. If the side shake is wrong, and this is what I'm looking for, then it just won't work. And if the jewel is too fat and I end up with end shake issues when it's sitting within the balance cock, then I've got another issue, and I may have to modify the setting to get it to fit, or I may not be able to modify the setting to get it to fit. So it's an adventure and a half to actually replace a jewel. Your other option is you have a seats jeweling tool, and you might be able to punch out the jewel that was in that jewel setting and replace it with another jewel, but in this case the diameter of that jewel has to be exact, otherwise it won't fit. And if the jewel is too fat, like I said, which is, for me, it means wide, then you may have to modify that jewel to narrow it. I've done this before, and I've done it with using a small sheet of diamond grit, and it was 3000 grit, I believe, and I got that from AliExpress China, and I used 2000 and 3000, and just using my finger to push the jewel down to rub it down to the right size. Again, very difficult to do. And so if you're ordering a jewel, you have to order the right width, you have to order the right depth of that jewel, you have to order the right diameter of the jewel, and then with any luck you'll get it in the right setting. You might be able to order the right jewel with a setting for that particular watch, but it's rare that that's going to happen. You're going to try to find new old stock, and that's difficult to find. So I've bought up jewel settings for years and years, and this is what I've ended up with, and it's not a lot, but it's still better than nothing, and I'm going to go hunting for the right setting. And so when I'm hunting for the setting, the first thing I do is I set up my balance and my balance staff, but it's already in the balance, on a piece of Rodico, and I try to get the right side shake for that jewel. I also have the balance cock there, so I try to make sure the setting actually fits the hole that's in there, and the width is generally the same. So you take your old jewel setting, put it on a piece of Rodico sideways, and then take all your settings and compare it to the sideways view of that jewel setting, so you can get kind of the same depth of where it seats into the balance cock, and you understand how far down that jewel setting will go and understand whether it'll actually work on your watch. So here's my watch in a million pieces, and as you can see over here, I've got the balance cock complete, or the balance cock right here, and then the balance with the hairspring, and of course the jewel will be fitted on top of the upper balance pivot to make sure it's the right size. So let's dig into this and see what I can find here. Just remove this rubber band on top of this, which I think is a great idea. And I just call it the ladies watch. And this watch is, it was good until I found that jewel setting problem. I had other problems, but had dial feet, it had no crystal, which I found. It's lacking hands of any type. So let me just grab the balance cock from this and put that down. That's something I need. And then I need to grab the old jewel setting. And some of this I may have to do under a microscope. There's the bad screw. I put that on a piece of Rodico, and that's a screw that wasn't doing anything when it was screwing down the cap jewel for the upper balance staff. So that's not doing anything. I'll just put that aside here. And I've got another setting here. I think this is the actual setting, and the other one was the cap for it. So I can put that one back like that. And then the balance itself, I'm going to stab this so I can bring it out. And that's the balance itself. And I'll set that up so I can actually put settings on top of that to see whether they're the right size. This is micro work, so I may end up underneath a microscope. I'm not sure, but I think I may end up underneath a microscope. But to show you how this thing works, I probably will end up taking out my microscope. I'm going to take this little screw and just put it here so I don't lose it, even though it's a crappy screw. And this watch needs hands as well, and all it had was the stump part, or the beginning part of the hour hand, and it does have a minute hand, but it's all bent, so that's no good. So this watch is a real project. Never thought it would be this bad a project. When people show up or tell you, hey, can you fix my great grandmother's watch, you think, well, okay, doesn't seem like it's too difficult a problem. And then there it is, the most difficult problem that you've ever seen. All right, there's the balance itself, and it's in fairly good condition. And I've got it sitting on a piece of Rodico, and I can just push this down a little bit, and the Rodico will accept that without a problem. And there's the pivot on the end that I've got to get very close to. And the jewel setting I have that has a bad, or the jewel was cracked on, is this one here. It looks like this. So this would be, there's a front and back to these jewel settings, and if you hold it sideways like this, you'll see that the setting itself has got a rim on it, so that the smaller diameter goes down and fits into, or being accepted with, to the shelf that's created within the balance cock. So you end up with a shelf. Let me look at this and see if you can see the shelf, whether that's obvious. Yeah, there it is there. So you look inside that balance cock and you can see a shelf, and that jewel setting fits in that shelf. Now, so the perfect situation is where I pull out a jewel setting and, oh my God, it fit. Yeah, okay. I was thinking there was a plugged hole there, but that would be a very good situation. So what I would do is see if I can find the right diameter jewel first within my sets of jewels, and that's just a whole lot of hunting that's going to happen. So I've got a brand new piece of Rodico, and this is a microscopic view. There are the end of my tweezers there. So when you see a little piece of whatever, within seconds that piece of Rodico will collect something, because that's its job. So I want to take this jewel setting here and just put it sideways on the Rodico here. Just press it down a bit so I can see what it might look like sideways when I pick my jewel. I want to pick the right diameter first, that way I don't have to deal with shaving it down later. And I've got some jewels that I'll pick from. I try to size these things appropriately, and I've got a bunch of different sizes of jewels that might fit and might not fit. So I'm going to just start with the diameter of this particular jewel, and so let me just push this thing down here, and that's the jewel there, and then I just pour the jewels out. I know some of them are way too big to fit. There's ones that look like this that are like, that's not even in the realm of fitting. And then I've got a boatload of these little tiny ones here that could fit, love to fit, but not sure if they fit. And here they are here. And there's a boatload of these things here that I have. And again, some of them look like they're small and might fit, but likely too big. Like if I pull one out here and see whether that looks like next to this, and you can see hole size is huge, the jewel setting is huge, and so I know as a measure that this is way too big, so when I go hunting, I'm hunting for way too small. So this is also way too big, and that's not going to fit either. And of course that thing just flew out of my hand here. The other thing I sometimes do is mark this with a little red pen in case I somehow misplace it, that I can go in and find it again. And I've got settings that are they look like they're good when you first pull them out, but then you're like, okay, this thing is massive. What is this setting anyway? Who made me use this? Now here's a setting that's smaller, but again, it looks massive compared to this little tiny setting. So when you go to put that next to inside of the hole here for the balance cock, and you say, okay, that's not too bad. Is that going to fit? And you look at it like this, and of course I'm just kind of looking at my camera right now, and which is screwing things up, and I'll be hunting for this setting now for a week. And you put it on top of the hole here, and it's way off. You know that's not going to work. So that's crappy. So it's a matter of hunting and hunting and hunting some more. So I don't think I'll show you all of the hunting. I'll just see if I can find one that's the right size, and I'll come back. Now here's a bit of a closer view of this problem here, and I've got, like you saw in the other picture, I've got this Rodico set up here, and I'll have this laid down this way to see if I can size a jewel properly, and then after that I'll be taking that setting and standing it sideways so that you can see the edge of that, and I can do that right now to show that to you. So that's what it would look like standing up like that, and you can see, as I said before, there's a shorter diameter here and a wider diameter, and it fits into the balance cock like that. I think I thought I was on my other camera before, but you can see that little cliff, that edging, that what did I call it before? Whatever it is, though, that accepts this jewel. So now if I can't find the right setting for this thing, I may just use this setting and see if I can source the right jewel. But let's go hunting. Hunting we will go. I end up just dumping the jewels onto the mat here, and then sizing it up next to the jewel that I have here. And then after I realize that these jewels in general are all way too big, I have to throw them back in and start all over again. It's very difficult to replace a setting, a jewel in a setting. It's not an easy job. So if you have a watch you're repairing and you realize that the jewel is broken, and it ends up being a size 0 watch, which gives it exponentially harder problem, then you may have a very difficult time trying to find the right setting. So I've got more settings here, and these ones look really small, but I doubt if they're the right size. I just doubt it. I will dump them though, or I'll just put this aside for a second to see if it's got possibility. And I'll look at another group of settings I have, and these ones are way too big. And then I'll look at another group of settings I have, and some of these are smaller, but I still think that they're way too big. So I still may have a problem. I can see one there that might be able to shave down in there, so it's got some possibility. I'll put it over to the side here. And then I've got another group right here is way too big, and another group of settings here which is a mixed group, and some of them might be the right size. I can see some small ones in there, so I'm going to put this up here in my might be right size section. I think this used to be filled with jewels and now it's not. So I hit my hand once a long time ago and I dropped a boatload of jewels, and I was like, man, that wasn't smart. So what I'll do is pour these ones out to start off with, like that, and I just eyeball the size to start. So it's actually the only way you can do it. And if I'm looking at these sizes, I know that's way too big. You can see, and there's a comparison of those two settings. Now when you look at that with your eyeball, you think, well, that's probably small enough, and then you put it under a microscope and you go, oh my God, that's not small at all. So that's a problem. And if you were to replace the jewel here, it's been burnished in within this setting. So now you've got to cut burnishing to put the jewel in and to re-burnish it. That's not a difficult or an easy feat on its own. So of these settings I dumped, none of them are the right size. Every one of them is too big. Look at that one there. monstrous compared to the other one. If you look at it from a distance, you think you might be close, but you're not close. So now I've got to put all of these back and start thinking. As I'm doing this, I'm thinking, what the hell am I going to do, right? It's not an easy problem to solve, only because of the size of these jewels for the size 6 watches. And even actually putting a new jewel in there is going to be a feat. I may end up having to make a jewel setting because there may be no way for me to actually burnish over the jewel in there, and making a setting may be the only alternative. So that there's an afternoon. So if you're going to do that, it's going to take an afternoon. Now when I send the watch back, or I tell the ladies that I'm finished my job, and they're going to say, well, how much does it cost? Well, if I start doing the hours versus the like the amount of time versus the pay, I end up at, well, up here in Canada we call it Tim Horton wages. In the US it's probably a donut company of some sort. So even that one there is too big. It's like, oh my god, I don't think I got any size 6 jewel settings here. Here's one that's fairly small, but I think if you flip to the USB camera, and that one looked really small. So this one here looks fairly small, but it's not. Look at the size of this thing under the microscope. You think you got something and you don't, and there it is there, and it is burnished in place. I just move that around the other way, so the burnishing is on the other side. If I look at this here and I flip this around, the burnishing hopefully is on the other side, and I think it is. So it'd be a matter of removing the burnishing. Now another thing that you could do is find a jewel that fits in there, remove the burnishing, and then the cap jewel would hold that in place. Otherwise you have to re-burnish it, which is almost impossible. So we'll look at all of those options. There's another one I thought would be around the right size, but again, under the microscope, not so. So now I'm going to dump the last bit of jewels I have. I do have that big container it'll dump too, but see what I've got here, if there's anything at all that might even be close. And I can see that there are some jewels that look like they're close, but I know they're not, because I think that this fact that this is a size 6 is what's causing me all of the pain. Or size 0, not a size 6, a size 0. The world's smallest watch size. Yeah, even the ones I think that are the right size are not. They're all super small. So the other option I have is to call to get a hold of Dave's watch parts, because Dave sometimes has some watch parts, and I'd have to measure the diameter of the setting. I'd have to measure the width of the setting. I'd have to measure the lip on the setting. I have to measure the hole size for the jewel, which I can do, and then send him all of that information and tell him it's for a size 6 Waltham Pocket Watch, or size 0. I keep saying size 6. I think it's a 0. Size 0 Waltham Pocket Watch. Check this one out here. And Dave, do you have something like that? Now, the other thing you could do is see if you can find a scrap movement and buy that movement, with the hopes that the upper balanced jewel setting is the right one. That's dangerous because there's nothing to rely on there, so it's very dangerous. So I think I'm going to go and see what I can do with respect to sizes and measuring. Alright, my last setting dump is this one here. If this were any other size watch, I could probably find a setting, but it's not. Just spread these out. This is like screw hunting, by the way. It's the same kind of adventure, if you've ever done that. they're real time killers, because you're trying to repair a watch and you're spending all your time trying to find a part. So see, I'm seeing parts that I think might be the right size, but underneath the microscope they're like massive. So I look at those in comparison and go, okay, maybe I've got something here, and then go, okay, I'm totally wrong. So I could try to find the jewel. I'm going to take a look at the setting under a microscope and see how bad that is, because I could try to set a jewel inside that setting too. That's, I think, option 2 before I try to measure it and see if I can and see if Dave might have that part. But of all these settings I have here, nothing is the right size, because it's so damn small. This, of course, is great tweezer practice, because you're going to spend at least 10 minutes just putting these settings back in the container and picking them up on the edge with the right tension as you're doing this job. There's one that looks really good, except again, it's the wrong size setting, which means it's probably the wrong hole, but I'll leave that one out for now. And there's a hidden one in the bottom, again, wrong size. But you'll get your practice putting settings back into a container if that's what you want to spend your day doing. So this is why when you go to get a watch repaired, if the person doesn't have an infinite amount of watch stock, right, then it's going to be a problem. I'm checking out these other settings here to see if there's anything that's even remotely close that I might be able to shave down on my lathe, and I'm not sure. Some of these are actual caps and not the jewel itself that the pivot goes through. It's just a cap. So I'll keep doing this until I get to the bottom. Now, I had somebody write me, I'm still at it, by the way. I had somebody write me and say, well, I've got this really difficult, complex watch and nobody wants to touch it. And the main problem there is, if he's listening, is that if you're in the money of making, or in the business of making money to repair watches, and they give you a very complex watch, then they should be charging you something in the order of $2,000 to repair, not 100 or 150 to 300 bucks or 400 bucks to repair, because it's going to take them perhaps days to do this job properly on this watch. So don't expect the repair group or company to actually take on a job that's going to take days. And if they just equate the days of work on that watch to turning around much simpler jobs and maybe getting, 2 days worth of work, 3 days worth of work on a lot of watches, could mean thousands of dollars for them. Even batteries at 20 bucks a battery exchange or something. Then why are they doing it? Because it's a business. So if you go to a business person to get your watch done, good luck. You're not going to get it done unless you're paying thousands of dollars to get it done. Now, these big jewel settings next to the small one looked like they were small jewel settings until I put them next to the original very small jewel setting and realized I got issues. So I think even the pivot hole size here looks probably is too big. So I think I'm going to end up having to put a jewel within this existing setting somehow. So here's a jewel setting under the microscope, and that's under my microscope on my bench, not my stereo microscope. So you can see that looks pretty darn rough, and that's the bottom of that jewel setting, not the top. So let me just see if I can, under camera, flip this thing around to look at the other side of the jewel setting. Alright, there's the other side of the jewel setting. And that other side, it looks like the jewel would just sit on there. So maybe it was glued in or something, I'm not sure, but I'm going to look under that microscope because it looks like there's a shelf there for the jewel to sit on, which almost makes no sense. But I can see leftover small flakes of that jewel right where I'm pointing right there. So maybe it was just sitting there and then the cap jewel was put on top or was glued in or something. Don't know. So we'll have a look at that. Alright, there's the microscopic view of this other setting, and it's not with my stereo microscope again, it's with my camera. But you can see that this was made, I'm going to try to lift this up at an angle, this is tricky, that this was just simply sitting on top, because there's no burnishing at all here happening. It's just like a hole that was made for the jewel. And then the back end of this looks even more caveman-like. So if I just turn this around really carefully and show you the back end, there it is there. Put that in the center, and you can see how that's just like a funnel to that other part. So there's no way that this is where the jewel was accepted, and I can see zero burnishing material on this. So I think that there has been a past watchmaker who just found this setting that looked like this and threw that in. You can see there's no burnishing material on that at all. And I'm going to very carefully flip this over. This is really small, by the way. And you can see there's the smaller diameter and the larger diameter that fits that hole. And then if I move it to this side, you can see that this was sitting right there on the top. And likely, again, glued in maybe. I'm not sure what this was all about. So I need to measure the pivot size, I think. I could, conceivably I could find a jewel that fits into this slot here and do the exact same thing by putting the cap jewel on it and hoping that all works. I don't really want to do that though. So I think I'm going to end the video at this point in time and go for suggestions of what I should do, and maybe you folks can let me know, because I thought maybe I could take the existing setting, re-burnish in a jewel. It's going to be tough to do that. I could cut a rim on the outside of this and pick a larger diameter of a jewel and then burnish in the larger diameter, but still I think I will have issues here because of the width of the jewel that would have to come in and go into play here. So I'll take all comments and all suggestions on what to do here. Sourcing a new one would be nice, but it doesn't look like it's something I could just automatically do unless the gentleman that I purchased parts from of this type, Dave, would have something like that. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching my channel. Let's continue with this adventure later on.